You've spent all that time creating your contract and you end up at this final step, the most important step. So today let's look at the 6 steps you need to follow to properly sign your contract. My name is Andrew Ayers. I'm a business law and estate planning attorney with offices in Edina, Minnesota and New York City. And let's look at 6 quick steps you want to make sure you follow when you're signing your contract. So when it comes to signing a contract, you've probably spent a significant amount of time creating the document itself. Maybe you've gone back and forth with a few different drafts between you and the other parties, and you've had some input from lawyers. Maybe you've had to change and totally restructure the contract. Whatever it's taken to get to this point, even though you spent all that time crafting the contract, this last step, the final step when you sign the contract, is often the most important one. What my clients often ask me for is, do you have a simple checklist or something we can look for to make sure that we know we've signed this contract correctly? So let's dive right in and look at 6 steps to make sure you've signed your contract correctly. Step number 1, make sure you've got the most recent version of the contract. So as I said, you may spend some time going back and forth on terms of the contract and making changes and adding pages, deleting clauses, whatever it may be. And so when it comes time to sign the contract, make sure that the document you're signing, the version you're signing, is the most recent version of the contract. In some situations, you may find that the other party may try to slip in an old version or slip in something you've never seen before and get you to sign something because you're not going to read the whole contract. That is a very sneaky way to do things, and it could get them in trouble in court. But you want to also make sure that you're looking through the contract before you sign it to make sure you've got the right version. Because what if they did slip in something you didn't see, but then you've signed the contract and you end up in a lawsuit? A judge may say, well, they might have done that. However, you should have known better. You should have read the contract before you signed it. So you always want to make sure you have the most recent version of the contract. Step number 2, date the contract. It's also important to make sure your contract is dated. Most contracts these days are actually signed electronically. Whether you use Adobe or DocuSign or some other system for electronic signatures, they will add a date to show when the document was signed, probably when it was sent to everybody, when it was opened, so you have a trail showing everybody's the process everybody went through to sign the document and when they signed it, so we know when we have a fully signed contract. But if you're doing a contract in person without electronic signatures, you want to make sure that you have a date on the contract. That date can become very important down the road if there's a lawsuit or some kind of a dispute about the contract and its terms. We need to know when it started. Number 3, check that any last-minute changes are initialed. So this also goes with number 1, where we talked about making sure you have the most recent version of the contract. We also want to make sure that if we're looking at that most recent version, and maybe there's a little change we have to make, maybe we're changing a date, maybe we're changing an amount, whatever that may be, any changes need to be initialed by all the parties that are signing the document. So if you're going to make a change, you can handwrite in that change, cross something out, add it in, but make sure that you are initialing that change as well as anybody else who's signing the contract. Number 4, very important, make sure that all the parties sign the contract. So most contracts are going to be between party A and party B. So 2 people, it's pretty straightforward, or 2 companies, and we make sure that somebody signs on either side. A lot of times we may have other signatures. Maybe we have 4, 5, 6 parties. In these situations, we want to make sure that everybody is signing the contract. Even if you think they've signed it, make sure when everyone is signed, you have one version that has all of the signatures on it. You want to be able to show that everyone signed, because if somebody didn't sign, they may not be held responsible. They may not be bound by the terms of that contract, and they may be the party you need to get into court with. They may be the ones who breach it, and you find out they didn't actually sign the contract for some reason. Step number 5, make sure that all parties are properly identified and authorized to sign. So if you're signing a contract in your name individually, this is really less of a concern. It's going to say your name at the end, you sign it, and you're all set. However, in the business context, many times we have contracts between companies that are signed off on between 2 different parties, and we need to make sure we know who is the proper person to be signing the contract. The reason we need that is because the CEO, the COO, a CFO, the C-suite executives of a company are often able to bind the company to a contract. So that business, if their CFO or CEO signs the document, can't get out of it in court by saying the CEO wasn't empowered. He wasn't able. He didn't have the agency to sign this document. However, if you're signing a document with some company and the person who signs it is John Smith, cashier at a local store, they may not be authorized to sign on behalf of the company. And you don't want John Smith signing $1 million contract with a distributor for some kind of new product that the store is going to sell. You want to make sure it's signed off on by the right person in the company. Usually that person will either be the person you've been negotiating with, or that person who you've been negotiating with will send it up to a superior or someone higher in the company to sign off on it. But whoever it is, make sure they're identified as what role they have with that company, and make sure they're authorized to sign and bind the company. The company needs to be bound in order for the contract to be enforceable against them. And then our final step, step number 6, keep an original signed copy in your files. Now, going back to electronic signatures, this is pretty easy because your software will likely send a copy to everybody showing everyone's signatures and their times. However, again, if we're doing it where we do not have electronic signatures, where we're signing just ink to paper, you want to have at least one original per party signing the contract. So if there's 2 people to a contract, you're going to sign the contract twice. You keep an original and the other party keeps an original. And you can then put that in a safe place, because in case there's any problems under the contract, you may need a copy of it. Now, your attorney will often ask for you to send them a copy, not the original. You'll keep the original, but they can have a copy in their files. In case there's a problem, they can refer back to it. If there were changes that were initialed, we want to make sure that's on the copy that's sent to your attorney as well. But make sure that your copy is kept somewhere safe. Most of the time in a lawsuit, there's no issue over the original copy of the contract. Everyone acknowledges it was signed. We don't have any kind of evidentiary issues. However, once in a while, the court needs to see the original document for some reason, and you want to be able to get that original copy from your files so that you can present it to the court. So hopefully you've seen that this final step of signing a contract is relatively straightforward, but we've got these 6 little bits on your checklist that we want to make sure are taken care of so that you are finalizing your contract in an enforceable way. If you need help with your contract or other business law matters, you can go to my website, 𝙁𝙊𝙇𝙊𝙒.com. On that page is a red legal strategy session button. If you click that, you'll be taken to my personal calendar. We can set up a 15 or 20-minute phone call to go over you and your business's needs and where we can work together to get those business contracts properly signed, stored, and ready to use in your business. If you like this video, you can hit the like button or the thumbs up below. You can head over to YouTube to subscribe for any future videos. And if there's anything else I can help you with, you can always set up a legal strategy session, and I will see you in our next video.